Right, now let's talk about all the things that we disliked. Right, so this is all the stuff that maybe we dislike or we didn't agree with the direction or things that irritate us and whatnot. Right, so let's see. Now, when it comes to comics, I don't think you can really complain about the comics because there's new writers and they come in, and to revisualize it and stuff like that. But for some reason, people are okay with it, but people in the cinema world or the TV world, they don't get the base thing. So, but when it's in a comic book, people tend to not argue, or maybe there's no media, that can get you connected to complain. I mean, I know there's a newsletter at the end of the comics and stuff like that. But there was like the New 52 that wasn't successful, but after the year, they done away with that, and then it was Rebirth, and then no doubt in another 10 years it'll be something else. So it's the only complaint I would say is I would prefer more one-off stories rather than having to worry about a timeline and everything else. I would prefer, instead of comics, I would just prefer like graphic novels and just bring the whole story into one book, and not just string it out in comics. And I mean, they've got to make their money some way and charge you quite a pretty penny just for I don't know how many pages are in a comic, but that's something I would like. So you could basically go in and pick up a book and it will be your complete story. You wouldn't need to worry about what happened beforehand and what's going to happen after. It's just a great story that you don't need to go out and buy something else to get a better picture of it. So that would be my kind of complaint about the comics. What else? TV series, the Christopher, the original black and white, George Reeves. I think it was they did this just as well as they could at the time. So I've got no complaints about Superman or Batman during those times because there were limitations. Batman TV series of the 60s, well, there is a sort of disliked it at the time. We look back on it and we reflect it, and it's okay. But for a while there, for those people that collected comics, anybody else outside the media or whatever, outside the comic book area, just thought it was kind of geeky and it wasn't trendy, and they thought that, and it did for a while, that the TV show was like the comics, but it did leave a sort of, it didn't treat Batman. It was quite tongue in cheek, but all's forgiven now. So that's really my wee hiccup about that series. And then that brings us to what came next? The Batman. The Batman movie with Jack Nicholson and stuff like that. No, sorry. How can I forget the Christopher Reeve movies? Right, Christopher Reeve movies. The only problem I had with that, even though he'd done a good job, was how Lex Luthor was portrayed. Like a guy down in the underground train station, and he wasn't the kind of, he wasn't a mad scientist. He wasn't sort of a billionaire instead in charge of a company. So the that sort of Lex Luthor I sort of had a problem with. But I like Gene Hackman as him. It wasn't the Lex Luthor I imagined. Another thing about Christopher Reeve movie was the whole Krypton thing. I didn't, even to this day, it's like you can't move away from the crystal thing. And when I remember when I was first watching it and you saw the planet Krypton and Christopher Reeve movie, and you went, wow, that is not what it's like in the comics. I read in the comics it was luscious, grass and everything else and nice robes, and there was a bit of colour, but in this Krypton it was dark, bleak. There was like one building and the whole entire planet and everything else was just rubble, and this was meant to be a sophisticated society that would have done, but no, that's all we got. And then it went to the Fortress of Solitude, where you had all those ice, you had all the, the crystal, the Fortress of Solitude was all kind of made out of ice sort of thing, and crystals in the North Pole and stuff. And even though it was good at the time, now it's sort of like people only will recognise the Fortress of Solitude if it was that way. They did it in Smallville, and no doubt that they'll carry on, and that is what his Fortress is like. It's got to be done the way it was done in Christopher Reeve, so I was quite happy when Man of Steel came around and they made the Fortress sort of like the spaceship. But I mean, they'll probably change it, right? They'll probably have something else if they ever get around to Man of Steel 2. They may introduce some new fortress or something. But that was my only wee hiccup, was I would say the Krypton planet itself and the way Gene Hackman, not the way he portrayed him, he was just doing what he was told, but the whole character of Lex Luthor in that wasn't the Lex Luthor I imagined. Surprisingly enough, the one in BVS was different, but a lot closer to all the different, to Lex Luthor being a mad scientist and the head of business. So for me, the one in BVS has been a lot closer, even with a new sort of spin on it. So that brings us to the Michael Keaton Batman. Well, let's stick with Christopher Reeve. The second Superman, and of course there was the meddling in it with the directors and Richard Donner getting kicked out, and then we have this, nowadays we have 2 cuts of the film, so that bugged me all around the world, and turning back time and We Famous Kiss and stuff. And then you've got Superman 3, which, I remember watching as a child, and when that woman gets turned into a robot, that was a wee bit frightening when I was watching it as a kid. And then of course there was a woman in it that was, she was hot, and that, and it was passable, it was passable, and the Superman after that was just, I don't know what happened in there. I think the only good thing that happened in that was Superman playing 2 kind of Clark Kents and that. So, but again, it was, I think after Superman 1 and Superman 2, it just started to go down. Let's see. The Batman films, Michael Keaton and stuff like that, and it was okay. Jack Nicholson's Joker was okay, but then when I see drawings of Joker jumping about and avoiding the bullets, then it was meant to be him that was meant to be the one that killed his parents. That sort of thing. And of course, at that time, it was the first of its kind, so you didn't have all that great sort of fighting moments in the movie, but it was just starting to find its feet. So that film was okay. The second one was okay, but listen, we all know what went wrong after Batman Returns. Okay, the director, the cheesiness of the music, all the lights and the Batmobile. I mean, I don't know what was happening with that Batmobile, and then that, I think that was the one with the Riddler and Two-Face. That was really, it was like arcing, it was like going back to in the 1960s Batman series. So after that, you had the Lois and Clark adventures. At the time, it was good, but then it got too lovey-dovey. It became very cheesy. But at the time, you know, I think looking back on it, I mean, I've got the box sets, but I just couldn't watch it. Now that we are so used to Smallville. Yeah, I mean, Smallville was cool. I mean, for the life of me, I don't know why they had to make. I mean, they introduced Cyborg, but instead of like CGI, they just gave him a costume with steel and with Green Arrow. Everything was like leather or rubber or something like that. Was the costumes. I don't mind. It took 10 years to get there. And it was a nice you know, after the original people left, Jeff Johns got involved, and we started to see more and more representation of the DCEU universe. So Smallville, never really had all that much bother with it. What else? The
that says done.
Right. What else? You got the. What else can I complain about? Green Arrow. I mean, you get good seasons and bad seasons. And Flash, I would say my main thing about Flash would be that it's working as a team, you know, and I would and it's kind of taking away stuff from Flash being the clever one, being the genius or whatever. It doesn't reflect the comics that well for me, but I still enjoy the show. I still enjoy the dynamic and stuff like that. So Arrow and Flash I'll continue to watch, but again, I think it could be a lot more, less of the love and family stuff, and more of a serious tone, like the way Arrow started off. But now everything's becoming quite, you know, it's not as hard hitting as shows like Teen Titans is just now, with, you know, it's full on nitty gritty and stuff, where the CW is kind of family orientated. So since we know it's family orientated, that's okay. Don't get me started on Supergirl. As you may know, I've done videos on Supergirl. It's the feminist, it's the sexist, it's putting Superman down. So I mean, my list can go on. After a couple of seasons of Supergirl, I've just given up on it. My partner was the same. She just thought it was getting too much, and coming from a woman, that says something. Then we talk about movies like Man of Steel. What did I get? Man of Steel. A lot of people said to me they wish they spent so much time on Krypton, but I had no problem with the time on Krypton. The only problem I had with Man of Steel, I would say, was like that scene where Zod is threatening his mother. I'd have loved to have seen the mother call out for Clark or something like that, and then Superman hearing this, and then flying off for the rescue. It would have meant his approach to Zod a wee bit more. What was what's the other thing? Maybe dialogue. In a dialogue, I think, there wasn't much coming from Clark himself, and I would have loved him to just talk more, and even if it was like some sort of, he recorded his voice. That's the thing that comics have that movies don't, is they have those thought bubbles, and I liked something along those lines. If we couldn't deliver the lines, I'd have liked to have known his angle on every step of the way, but you can't when half the film is fighting. But I would think if there was some more dialogue from Man of Steel, then it would have been a wee bit more successful. But again, I love the film. BVS, of course, we should have got the Ultimate Edition first of all, and then we should have, the studio, of course, should have just been left alone to see what Zack could have done. And I don't believe that. I believe the Ultimate Edition of any movie should be the one that's done. You would want the director's full works out in the cinema, so he doesn't need to go back and correct them like George Lucas has done with his Star Wars films a lot. What else? So apart from BVS, no, I love Lex Luthor in it. I loved the story, but no, that was it. Just the Ultimate Edition should have came out forward. Justice League, or Suicide Squad, and Justice League. Of course, it's all the meddling, and regret and choice direction, but at the same time we got Suicide Squad that has now introduced us to a lot of characters. I would have liked to have seen maybe Big Killer Croc. I'd have loved to have seen a bigger version of Killer Croc rather than the makeup, but hey, due to the makeup it got an Oscar. The music track was brilliant. I would have, as far as the enemy is concerned, I'm not bothered about Enchantress being the enemy and Joker being a sideline. No, I know people will say, "Oh, Joker should have been the villain" and everything else, but I had no problem with the villain. I just wish there was more of a threat or more enemies fighting rather than what we got. But it's still an enjoyable film to watch. The Justice League, everything just went wrong with that. We've ended up now due to the Justice League. We're still not too sure where the future of the DC EU is. What we got, and I think my major big problem with the DC is we all remember the hype that we got for BVS and Justice League, and we all thought it was going to make $1 billion, and because these are iconic heroes, and we were all thinking this is it. This is going to be historic. This is going to be, and sadly enough, BVS and Justice League didn't get that appraisal. It didn't make all that much money, and that is going to go down in history as the biggest regret, because you want your best heroes to be in the ultimate movie, and especially the first time out. Now, sadly enough, it's only due to the people like myself, you guys, if you love BVS, that we did get the movie we wanted, but sadly enough, it's a movie that never took off. It's a movie that never done as well as we had hoped. So that was my biggest regret. And again, when I go down to Netflix and I don't see the Ultimate Edition, the only people that would be even interested in seeing the Ultimate Edition are fans. But general public, Joe public, wouldn't even be bothered. You know. What is Wonder Woman? Wonder Woman. Do I have any regrets with Wonder Woman? No, I think Wonder Woman's. There's not much I can say badly about Wonder Woman. I thought the music score was good. I thought the action sequence was good. Again, I heard some people saying they wish they spent more time in Themyscira. What else? Aquaman. Again, the only stuff I've got gripes with Aquaman is the music score. After listening to Aquaman drink a bottle of whatever beer or whatever, throwing it away, jumping into the water and listening to some Echo Thump or whatever the group is, a wee bit of rock music, that got us going. So the lack of that in the Aquaman movie was something that let me down, and it was bearing a wee bit too close to a Marvel style formula, and so that was the thing that let me down now. So I was going to do this video live, but I thought no, because I would get like one view and somebody else. But let me know. This is just a wee stuff on top of my hat, top of my head. What sort of disappointed me so far, being a DC fan. Oh, the other thing that disappointed me is the DC streaming as well. Is I want, I want to be able to access, the DC internet access thing. It's making people lazy and not going out and buying comics or buying those graphic novels that I want. And you can just do it online, and then you've got the TV shows again that you can only see through if you have that streaming service, especially if you have that streaming service in your country. I believe that any sort of media like Teen Titans or Swamp Thing should be available to all on, or be able to purchase it on DVD to add to their own collection and not just remain some sort of download to your computer thing. So, but I still, in the bigger picture, I think it's a good idea. It will introduce people to, comics and the characters and everything else. There's an encyclopedia there. It will connect people. So, don't get me wrong, there are good points to it, but I just wish that when it came to programs that they're making, I mean, I can see why maybe they only think that comic book fans would be interested in watching them, or DC fans would be interested in watching them, but I don't think that's really I would regret if that was the case, because there is a general interest in everybody, especially if some sort of program has a hero in it. People would be curious to see that and end up loving it and be more involved in it. But if it's only through a streaming service that the general Joe public would only pop in every now and again, that was my beef. So anyway, if there's anything that you can think that bugs you about your beloved DCEU, let us know. This has been my truth. I will be going live on Friday, hopefully, on DC Vigilante page. I don't know if it's changed its name yet. It's right now it's called DC Fan Gives Hope, but it will have its name change, and I'll be going live on Friday UK time about 1 o'clock if you want to talk to us there. So this is DC Vigilante out.